There's been a lot of people that have been moving around the country over the last 2 or 3 years. We've, been through a pandemic and those types of things. But there are people also looking at their lives and saying, where do I want to live? Where's my lifestyle by design? And this particular story is a story of transitioning states. And that's never easy to do if you're also trying to transition to another place to live and to work, if the job that you're doing is not on a keyboard and you can't work remotely. So in this particular case, what the problem that we were trying to solve for was a situation where they wanted to avoid renting in the next location they're going. So they had a clear idea about where they wanted to live and what they wanted to buy, and they didn't want to have that lost year of renting or whatever that looked like. So, but we've got a nurse and a coal miner. They're living in New South Wales, looking to go to Western Australia, to Perth, to set up their new life. Okay, and so part of this particular story is if you go to a lender and you're telling your lender, "Here's my jobs," and then they say, "What's your plan?" "Oh, we're going to buy a house in Perth," and they go, "Well, it doesn't service. If we keep the existing property and we've got the new property, we can't actually service that." And then also, there's another big problem here is like, okay, if you're moving, you can't do those jobs remotely. I mean, a nurse, well, maybe you can do telehealth, but in terms of this particular situation, no, the miner and the medical professional needed to obviously find gainful employment. So there's a sequencing story that has to happen here. And number one, they were quite smart around, right, how do we get the sale of our existing property? How do we realise the best result? And well, that is to, present it in its best form. And that meant some renovations. And so doing some tidy up as part of that. Now, the best way to do that is get out of the house. And so they decided to rent to get out of the house, to obviously set it up and then style the property to get the best result for sale. The sale of the new property is also going to mean that there's going to be proceeds of that, which are ultimately going to mean you'll get your pre-approval for that future purchase in Western Australia. Now, the job story needed to be really clear that we're going to continue to keep working where we are until we find gainful employment in that next location. So guaranteed incomes are really critical for lending. You can have the most equity you think you've got, and the bank should lend you money because of the equity and the asset. No, it's all around the income and the serviceability. So continuation of income is really important. So to cut it short, they effectively decide to buy the property in WA as an investment purchase, which also then substitutes the rental income that they're paying in New South Wales, which means their borrowing power is effectively neutralised or maintained at that higher level, and then effectively settle on that purchase, whilst then starting to think about, securing their jobs in the West. And so this is a classic sequencing story. And, what problem are we trying to solve for? Well, we're trying to solve if we can avoid rental over in WA, which delays us for 12 months to get what we want. We're confident that obviously the two industries that we're associated with will give us gainful employment. So, stay where we are, continue to keep doing the work, get our letters of offer of moving across there, and away we go in terms of being able to execute on that particular story. So it's a terrific outcome. It means that there's no real dead money in terms of or time delay in them getting into their owner-occupied home and getting to set up their new life in their new state.
So stage one was releasing equity to fund the reno at the beginning, get that sorted, maximise the sale price. Then stage two became the pre-approval for the next purchase, as well as optimising all those sequences that you said. So there's a couple of key things here. They couldn't wing it. It was not possible to wing it. A couple of reasons is they needed to get simultaneous settlement on the selling of their home and the settling on the new property to make the bridging of the finance work. So that was super important for really strong communication, getting solicitors and vendors to all be in sync on that as well. And then to your point too, Ben, they had very challenging transient natures of the role, which meant that they needed to sequence that correctly so that they could actually service the lending and do what they needed to do. So they got interest only for on the lending for 2 years, so they could maximise their surplus in those first 2 years so that they could adjust to the WA way of life. They built in a 100K buffer so that they have that emergency fund as well as assist with those relocation costs. So the end result was the application prevailed, but here's the best bit. the clients actioned their relocation plan. They've settled in Perth. They've secured the property they wanted in WA, and they secured jobs in WA.